podcast where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country.
Welcome to the Kestrel Country podcast. We have Bree Vestal on today, which is really fun. So Bree, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what brought you to Moscow.
Sweet. Well, I'm Bree Vestal. We moved here about 2 years ago. Originally, we were from Texas. We went to New York City, and then we came here.
So it's a big jump around the country.
Yeah.
Almost coast all sides.
Yes. We've experienced 3 corners. We have one more, but I don't really think we want to go to Southern California. So we're going to stay here.
Good.
We came out here for her husband's work. He does video media. So we did that. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3. While he does his thing, I get to do my thing, and they're a good time, a little wild bunch, but they're a happy wild bunch. So,
which is wonderful.
Yes, that's what we do.
Yeah. So you came out 2 years ago, and you have a very talented ability with making cakes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bree makes beautiful cakes. But how did you get into that?
So we were in New York City during the whole pandemic craziness.
Sorry, really quick to back it up. What year did you guys move to New York?
2018.
Okay.
Right. January 2018.
Okay. And what pulled you guys to New York?
Husband's work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was doing video out there for various different companies, Macy's, Dr. Oz, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we moved out there for him to do that. And then we ended up there during 2020 whenever everything was completely shut down.
Yeah.
Like we had a friend, the weekend everything shut down, she drove upstate and she drove through Manhattan and she made a video of it all. And you didn't see anybody on the sidewalks, which if you know Manhattan, that's really creepy.
Like the apocalypse happened.
Yeah. It was like, is this like Cloverfield, the movie or something like that? Like what's happening? So yeah, we were just like, well, we're staying inside, I guess.
Apparently, yes.
While we were inside, I had already kind of baked a little bit, but I didn't really have the time because we were out doing things. So whenever I had the time, I actually worked on honing the skill and worked on decorating more. And that's whenever it really started to take off.
So it was a COVID inspiration.
Yeah.
Was this when your husband was doing Cake Boss stuff too, or was that not an influence?
No, that actually, he did not do that until 2021.
Okay.
I think. Yes, because he was furloughed during the pandemic. And then whenever he came back, he realized he didn't need to be at that company anymore.
Right.
And so he was looking for someone that wouldn't compromise values, and the Cake Boss would not do that to him. So he worked for the Cake Boss.
But you'd already started getting your cake skills.
Oh, yes. There was a lot of cake at that time because he would take pictures of it and you can't sell it once you cut into it. So he would bring cake home and I would make a cake that day. And
so you got to taste both.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of cake at the time. Yeah.
And you still haven't gotten sick of it.
No.
Which is good.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has, but...
Well, you're still making them. I think
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started doing it then. How did you get into all your palette knife work and how did you teach yourself?
I got it. I think I just saw pictures of it and I wanted to do it. And so I looked up how to do it. But at the time, there were no tutorials on how to do it.
Really?
Now there is.
Okay. So
there wasn't back then.
Then YouTube took off with how to do this.
Yeah. At the time, whenever I looked it up, there was only one person on YouTube who had like a somewhat free tutorial.
Okay.
And so I watched what she did and then just took the basics of what she had and morphed it into what I'm doing now. But yeah, there's a lot more people who do it on YouTube now. So if you want to learn, you can actually look at YouTube now.
Yeah. Well, that's super fun. So tell me, do you have an artistic background besides cakes?
No.
No?
No, not at all. No. Yeah. Before I started doing that, before we got married and stuff, I was working retail. Like I wasn't doing anything like that. And in high school, I kind of did watercolors and stuff like that, but not really. I was more athletic in high school than anything.
Yeah.
So this is just very random. But
then you
that's
found
where
a
we
skill.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really fun. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time either. It's like, here we are.
Yeah. And it's passion for it.
Yeah.
So when you dive deep into it, is it the baking part that the decorating part both that you enjoy equally?
It's both equally. Yeah. I mean, I would say I lean more into the decorating a little bit because sometimes when I turn on the oven, I'm like, I have to make this right now in order to make this. So, I mean, they go together, but the decorating part is obviously way more fun than the baking part for me.
Yeah.
There are like technical baking things like choux pastry and stuff that I do like to do, but I have yet to learn how to make that like artistically pretty. It can look like culinary pretty, but I mean, that's not artistic, but you know, it's just different than what I do.
Yeah. So what is your go-to style like on recipes? Because I feel like the cake is actually pretty important.
Yes.
And if it doesn't hold together or if it's too soft, you get a nightmare for, you know, when you're trying to frost and you know, don't do a crumb coat or whatever, or even trying that and everyth's just getting into the frosting.
Yes.
So what have you learned? What are your tips and tricks?
Well, for recipes, so I've told a lot of people about this book. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I use Tessa Huff. She has 2 recipe books. I have the second one. I have yet to get the first one, but it looks good too. The one I have is called Icing on the Cake. And pretty much every recipe that I've used from her holds really well. And she wrote the book to where it has the recipe and ideas for decorating. So she has different tips for how to decorate in different recipes. And I just kind of mix and match all of her recipes and fillings to put together. But every time I've made something of hers, it's held really well. So I just kind of blindly trust whatever recipe she's written. Yeah.
Well, if you find someone good, it's kind of like, yes, stick with it. There's online, one of the ones we found was Sally's Baking Addiction.
Yes. Yeah.
You've hit that one.
I've made a few of hers and her stuff is good too.
It is good. Because my daughter, Ida, has been very much getting into cake decorating and cake making and all of that. But it is, if it doesn't turn out or if it's too soft.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. There's one that I do make. It's like an orange butter cake, and it's really good. But I found if you don't mix it properly, it has it has real orange juice in it.
Oh.
And so the orange juice gets really sticky if it doesn't properly mix with everything else. So it comes up on the side and it makes it really crumbly. So there's some things that you just have to actually make it properly because it's not the cake itself, but it's just the way that you put it together.
There's a method to the madness in terms of the step-by-step.
Yes. And each cake is different too. Like it has you mix it a certain way sometimes and not other times. And
well, see,
that's
I find
fun.
That. Oh, I do. Well, and I find the science of that stuff fascinating. So I find it's
interesting.
Really interesting. Oh,
I did not know it was a thing. I was never a science person, so it's funny that this is happening because that was not what I was expecting either.
I kind of love that for people. You know, it's when you're in school and you're learning math or you're learning all these things. Which, disclosure, I do love math, or disclaimer, rather.
Right.
So I, but when you get into the real world, because in elementary or whatever, you're like, when am I going to use math? How does it apply? That's the common thing. And you're like, well, actually, it's really cool.
Well, I use it every day now.
Yeah, you're constantly using it in baking, in figuring things out. And then the science is the same way, where this practicality of what's making it brown or what's making it flop or acid affecting like this onions.
Yes.
That kind of a thing, right? Where tomatoes, that was something I learned recently. It's like tomatoes added into the onions will stop or slow the cooking big time.
Oh,
if I'm getting this right.
I didn't know that either.
I think I'm getting it right.
Yeah.
And I have to double check.
Yeah.
Now. But it was one of those things where you're like, oh,
that makes sense.
That makes sense. So, if you're sauteing your onions before you add in, if you're making chili or something like that, you're like, oh, okay, that helps you understand this step by step versus like, why isn't it working if we just dump?
Right. Yeah, I know. I want to make chili again. Yeah. Exactly. Just test it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll double check on it. But so that science stuff behind it is actually fascinating. Yeah. And then if your cake is not working, that's so cool.
Right. Yeah. I had in New York, my old pastor's wife was like, this cake keeps falling apart and I don't know why. And she had old baking powder or baking soda, one of the two. It wasn't like, expired or anything, but it just wasn't working properly. And so she kept trying, and then I told her to replace the baking soda, and then it worked right. And she was like, oh, yeah.
But it's things you might not even think to change or check.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Tessa Huff on the cookbook.
And her last name is Huff.
Okay. So like Huff and Puff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And her Instagram has a lot of good stuff too.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. I think she puts out more recipes on Instagram, and she has a blog that has a lot of free recipes too.
That's nice.
So she's a good one.
And both her frostings and her cakes
Yes.
you found to be really effective.
Yes, her frosting recipe, I haven't memorized because I do it so often, but her American buttercream recipe is what I use almost all the time.
Okay.
I've done her Swiss meringue before too, and I like Swiss meringue, but not everyone does. And it also doesn't hold color as well.
Oh,
so
interesting.
I've kind of leaned away from that because butter and gel food coloring going together does not work. I mean, you'll get color, but it's really, really pale. And so you have to use a lot of your food color to get any sort of saturation.
Okay. So what does, so her American buttercream, does it use butter?
Yes.
It does. But,
Yes.
but the butter does.
The butter to powdered sugar ratio is much more. In a Swiss meringue, it's butter and just a little bit of granulated sugar and egg whites.
Okay.
So it's majority butter in the Swiss meringue. And gel coloring and butter do not like each other.
Okay.
But gel and powdered sugar do. So if you are making a Swiss meringue, you would have to get like a liquid candy food coloring.
Okay.
Which I prefer not to do that.
Do you notice a taste difference between
Yes,
those? You do. Okay.
Major taste difference. Yeah, American buttercream is really sweet, and the texture is just more like your classic kind of grocery store. I mean, not gross, but
No,
you know,
but where
like,
it coats the tongue.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And then a Swiss meringue is like not as sweet, and then it's whipped egg whites and butter. So
Do you
it's
cook it at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You get the egg whites and sugar, and you get it over like a double broiler, and you whisk the egg whites until sugar dissolves. It's like at 160, and then you whisk in the room temperature butter until it becomes a buttercream,
Okay.
and you add like vanilla or whatever
Yeah.
flavor you want to it, and that's that. And so it has a really buttery flavor, not nearly as sweet. Like I actually prefer it.
You like it
honestly.
better.
I like it better, but it just does not decorate as well as the other one.
Does it have a time limit on how quickly you have to apply it to the cake?
No.
No, it's okay.
No,
Okay.
it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. The sugar still preserves it
Okay.
like it does with regular buttercream.
Nice.
But I also haven't left it out for a long time. I feel like it would melt a lot faster.
Yeah.
So that's another risk I'm not willing to take, especially now that it's getting hot outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't want to do that. Yeah.
So you prefer the American buttercream. And do you do anything special with your gel colors or a special brand that you recommend?
yeah, I use AmeriColor.
Okay. Where do you
So-
get that?
Just from their website, AmeriColor.
okay.
You can get it on Amazon too, but it's a lot cheaper if you get it from AmeriColor directly. And they're close to our area, so if you get it shipped, it's actually faster than Amazon too.
Oh, that's a win.
It's a big win,
Yeah.
which is sad because Amazon's supposed to be fast.
I know. Well, I
But-
feel like that the Prime 2 Day has changed. And being in Moscow, especially, it's like
Exactly. It's like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, you have to be ready
Yeah.
for like you have to prepare a little bit.
Yes. But yeah, AmeriColor, they have different sets. You can buy like beginner sets, and I think they're a little bit cheaper than buying the individual colors.
Okay.
But the individual colors, I think in total they have 72.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Do you have all of them?
No. I have a good amount of them, but I don't have all of them.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like something in the 60, 70 range that they have. But yeah, wide range of colors. Some of them are duds, but some of them, I mean, most of them are really, really good.
And
So
do they taste weird at all? Or do you
I
have to
haven't noticed
apply
that.
like a mass amount to get
No,
No, you don't? Okay.
You just use a little bit at a time,
Oh, nice.
and it saturates really because it's a gel, so it saturates really, really well. The only time that you have to use a lot is if you want a really deep jewel tone, like a nice navy blue,
Yeah.
or kind of an eggplant purple. You kind of have to add a little bit more, but not the whole bottle.
Okay.
Probably just like 3 or 4 more drops more than you would other colors.
Oh, okay. So it's not drastic.
No.
Were you thinking about, like bakery stuff from the grocery store? The red roses where that taste
Yes.
is like
Yes. Yeah. No, I do know that with food colorings,
Yeah.
red tastes worse than all the other ones.
okay.
And red food coloring is the hardest color to get whenever you're coloring icing or anything like that. So people tend to dump red in it to get an overly saturated red. And so that might be why it tastes so
It ends
bad,
up
because red actually does taste worse than all the other ones.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's
So just
fun.
avoid red.
Yeah. Well, and also another thing people don't really know is that colors take longer to develop.
Really?
So if you
Okay.
mix your color into your buttercream, royal icing, whatever,
Yeah.
if you let it sit out for like an hour or so, which you don't really want to do because you want to do right now.
Right.
But if you let it sit for some time, it'll develop and it'll become more saturated. So
Oh.
whenever you're making a red or a blue or a black, people are like, why is it not like the color I want it to be? It has to develop for some time. Another thing that you can do to get the color, if you're not getting it and you want to do it fast, you can take probably a few spoonfuls of your mix and put it in the microwave or on the stovetop if you don't want to use a microwave, and you can zap it until it's melted and warm. And then you can mix it in with the remainder of what you have, and it'll actually make it the color that you're wanting it to be.
Because it's just speeding up the process.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really fascinating.
Yeah. Don't know why. I don't know the science behind
that one,
but
but the
I know it
sitting
works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So the frosting working well is another one where I bet you could mess that up too, because we've, when you're whipping it or anything like that, is it possible to over whip, to have things separate? What are the failure points that happen in the frosting?
It's possible. I know for Swiss meringue buttercream, that one's a lot trickier because the butter has to be a perfect temperature for you to be able to whip it right. That one separates really easily.
Okay.
The American buttercream, oh man, I feel like it's not as difficult. You just have to make sure your butter's like room temperature. Sometimes I even have it a little bit melted.
Okay.
Just
so pretty soft.
Yeah, you want it really soft. But if it's soft, you whip the butter first, and then I add half of my powdered sugar in, and then the liquid, and then I whip it some more, and then add the rest of the powdered sugar. And I've never really had a problem with it. So.
Well, and what about with palette knife decorating versus piping? In terms of your consistency, your thickness?
I don't like piping. Okay. So, that's just me, though. I know so many people are really good at piping.
Yeah.
I've tried it so many times,
Really?
and it is not for me. No, it is not. Maybe I just need to try more, but that's not
the
for
palette
me.
knife. So with the palette knife, though, does it need to be thicker? The frosting consistency, when you're holding a piping bag, your hands are warming it up, but that can be frustrating too. Where it starts to.
That's probably why I don't like it.
Well, because if it starts too cold and then you're like squeezing so hard.
Well, so piping with tips is what I don't like.
Okay.
But I do pipe, like if I'm making a design or something, or I'm drawing a character on a cake, I will use a piping bag to pipe it on. So I definitely get like the hands warming it up. That's not fun.
No.
But with the palette knives, you don't have to worry about that at all.
Yeah.
So whatever texture you have it is the texture it's going to be the whole time. It doesn't get too warm or anything like that, which is another reason why
to prefer.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. So how long does it take, would you say, to decorate with palette knives, to complete a whole cake?
So if I'm doing a floral arrangement, it usually takes me 45 minutes to an hour to finish just the palette knife part.
Yeah.
The crumb coat, you crumb coat it and then you let it sit for 30 minutes and then you do the base coat and then I let that sit for 30 minutes.
Okay. So really quick. So when you've done your crumb coat, you're doing 2 coats basically on the bottom here. Okay. So crumb coat, do you just let it sit out or do you put it in the fridge?
I usually put it in the fridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let it harden.
I have children that'll grab it. So, I'll put it in the fridge. Just keep it away from everything.
Yes.
And I think it speeds it up a little bit too, just to get it really firm. Yeah.
And then you put a base coat.
Yep.
And that is just another layer.
Yes. It's a thicker layer to where you don't see the cake through it. And a base coat for me to put it on usually takes me 20 to 30 minutes too.
Okay.
So putting that on and then I put it back in the fridge until I'm ready to decorate. I usually decorate at night when everyone's in bed.
Yeah.
Just so I can actually focus on it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you do the other parts? Like when do you fit this all in? Because obviously you've got a lot of steps, the baking, the cooling.
Yeah.
So how do you work it in the day?
Yes.
With the kids?
Right. So baking, I usually do whenever because we have a deep freeze and cakes freeze really well.
Nice.
So I'll just bake it and then freeze it until like the day before I'm going to decorate it. And then I'll decorate it, do a crumb coat in the morning and then do the base coat like sometime in the afternoon and just let it sit in the fridge until I'm ready to decorate it at night.
So you try to do it the day before you're going to eat it, basically.
Yes. So that way it's like at least fresh and not gross.
I know. Dry cake is the worst.
No, it is. And the good thing about freezing it too is if you bake it and then you wrap it whenever it's still slightly warm, it actually traps the moisture inside. And so it's frozen whenever you thaw it out. It's still
maintaining that moisture.
Yeah.
What about like the syrup coat or whatever people do?
Simple syrups.
What is your thought on that? Like a cheap method
no,
or too sweet?
I don't think it's a cheat. I mean, it might be too sweet. I've only done it, maybe 2 times. Yeah. It feels like a little unnecessary to me. And it also makes your cake really moist. So it would really fall apart if something
goes wrong.
go wrong. But yeah, I mean, I'm not against simple syrups. I've done it's lilac season.
Yes.
So last year I made lilac simple syrup.
Oh, yeah.
And I water bath canned it and stuff. And I used that for my daughter's cake last year. And it was good, but it was also just like barely noticeable.
Okay. So for the extra effort, it was kind of like,
yeah.
You didn't need it.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you particular about your flour or anything on that front too?
Not really. I mean, I definitely prefer like unbleached all-purpose flour. Cake flour is really nice if you want to buy it all the time.
Yeah, to
It's
splurge on it.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want a really nice cake flour is great. And then I have before gotten the European butter, which has a higher fat content, and that is really nice. But I also don't even know where to find that here. I found it in New York, but I have not found it here.
At any of the grocery stores? I wonder if Safeway carries it.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Maybe. I have not found that. But that is really nice if you can find it. It is also just
that much more expensive.
Yeah.
Do you use it both in the cake and the frosting, or is that higher fat content in the frosting? Okay.
Yeah, I would be okay. Yeah, for sure.
That's really fun. So with your cake stuff, you've been doing some of it. Is it something that you have started doing for other people, or is it just right now hobby and this is for the kids?
No, I've definitely done it for other people. Yeah. I mean, if people ask me to make them something, I'll make them something.
Yeah.
I'm not hoarding it all for us. I don't think we could eat that much cake. Yeah. But yeah, definitely we'll make them for other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Have you done wedding cakes at all, or is that a zone where it's like
no,
that changes
I have.
okay.
Yeah. I did one back in December, which was really fun. I did like a 3-tiered wedding cake, and then she wanted some sheet cake to have in the back. So I did the wedding cake and then 6 sheet cakes in the back for her. And then I have another wedding actually at the end of June that I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
So still yet to determine what we're actually doing for that, but it'll be fun.
And you take a lot of pictures of your cakes too.
Yes.
So if people want to see them, where should they go?
Just my Instagram.
Okay.
Which is my name, Brie_Vestal. But yeah.
And Brie is with one E, right?
Yes, one E. Yes, quite confusing. There's either an I or an E, but I don't have either of those.
Yes, it's just BRE.
Yeah. And then, I mostly do cakes, and then I do, sugar cookies and pies and stuff like that too. So that's sprinkled in
on
there
your
also.
sugar cookies. Do you palette knife too?
I can.
Or do you pipe? Or what's your decorating?
For sugar cookies, normally I do royal icing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing the fill and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the fill and everything like that. And either I do it straight with royal icing for the design, or I watercolor on top of the royal icing. So
then you're pulling back that watercolor bit.
I know. Yeah. That one little stint in high school is coming back for cookies.
Have you, has it inspired you at all to try watercoloring on paper, or is it just you love
a little bit
frosting as your medium?
No, I've done a few watercolors since then. And then I actually started to get into acrylic painting again.
Oh.
At Easter time, I did acrylic painted eggs.
Oh,
so
fun.
That was fun.
Okay, so how do you do acrylic painted eggs?
So I got wooden egg. Well, not like actual eggs. Yeah, that's confusing. No, I got actual like wooden eggs.
And well, the benefit is then you can reuse them.
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah, they're more
eggs.
like an heirloom thing.
Yes.
And so yeah, wooden eggs. Just do a base coat of acrylic paint on it, and then paint your design, and then Mod Podge over it so it seals it.
That's really fun.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
I did the same thing with ornaments too.
Oh, at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. So the artistic elements are
it's broadening a little bit. Yeah,
into the other areas of life.
Yeah,
that's really fun. Well, as we wind down, any final tips and tricks on getting into cake decorating? As a fun hobby or a side thing.
Yeah,
and we talked about the timing on how to squeeze it in with people and family and kids.
Oh yeah, you can definitely work around your schedule however you need it to be. It should definitely like fit into your life instead of just trying to like force it, But
to enjoy the cake baking process, like birthday baking, so it doesn't flop, or you're not dealing with the cake that's just ripped apart or comes out of the pan with half of it missing.
Right. So actually my daughter's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, tell us what you're doing.
Yes. So, what I'm doing I'm doing an outdoor tea party for her. She requested Jemima Puddle Duck and chocolate cakes.
Oh, so here you go.
Yes. So like what I would do for something like this is last week I made her cake and it's been in the freezer, and I'll pull it out today and I'll do a crumb coat on it because this is her birthday. So I'm not just doing a cake. I'm doing more.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the crumb coat today. I'm going to decorate it tomorrow. And then today and tomorrow, I'm going to bake all the other things for her party. So we're doing scones, and I made little miniature pots of strawberry jam.
Oh, cute.
I made strawberry jam yesterday, and they keep asking to eat the jam. I'm like, you have to
Sure.
wait for your birthday.
Yep.
And then I'm going to make other like appetizer things tomorrow and stuff like that. But so there's a lot of stuff going on. Cake is already made, so I don't have to worry about that. I just have to get it decorated.
Yes.
But if you just space it out over time, that'll help with scheduling. And then if you're just getting started making cakes, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't do it, you won't get into
Right.
it. And your first ones are going to be horrible. They're going to be so bad.
Don't do those as the birthday cake.
And you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, they might be really good, but my first few were not good.
Do you have a go-to? Like, do you always line with parchment paper, or do you do any kind of special thing to insulate the pan when it bakes? Do you do anything like
I
that?
actually don't do parchment paper because it annoys me.
Okay.
So, just cutting a perfect circle every time. It bothers me. So I get the cake pan. I cover the whole thing with butter, just like room temperature
Real butter.
Yes, real butter. I don't use the sprays and stuff because they've let me down too many times.
Okay.
So I do real butter, and then on top of the butter, you put flour and just make sure it's coated in butter, then flour, and then it comes out
Beautifully.
every time. Yeah.
What if you're doing one of those naked cakes? Does that change that process, or does the flour end up showing up at all?
Oh, no.
No.
If it does, you can just like kind of brush it off.
Okay.
But it usually doesn't. The only place where it would show up is on the bottom rim of the cake.
Which is going to be probably covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the actual cake itself, you won't notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So those are good tips and tricks. And it sounds like a really yummy tea party.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure they will have a good time.
Oh yes. All the treats. All the
yes.
sweets.
Yes.
Well, Bree, thank you so much for coming on, and it's really fun. We could talk a lot about cake.
Yeah, we could. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, go take a look at her work at, remind us of your Instagram one more time.
BRE_Vestal, VESTAL.
And then hopefully we'll get to see pictures of the birthday cake.
Oh, yes.
Maybe by the time this drops. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah.
That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, Bree.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.